All right, let's move on to headlines. Number one, I want to start with this very instructive case here. This was reported on the Daily Wire. It says a male student at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University is suing after the school expelled him for sexual misconduct, even after evidence was presented that showed he was the victim. The student, referred to as John Doe in court documents, says in his lawsuit that he informed ERAU that he was too intoxicated to engage in sexual activity, and witness statements back him up, yet the school relied on antiquated gender stereotypes about male sexuality to say his claim wasn't credible. So that's the introduction to the case. Here are some of the specifics. Jane and John Doe, no relation, let's hope. Girl and guy on this college campus. I suspect that's not their real names. They've been texting for weeks. They meet up at a party, I think. John is 15 drinks in, okay, completely hammered. They go back to, I think it was his place, and they, have sexual relations. She initiates sexual contact with this extremely drunk man. Then she spends the night. The next morning she leaves. Later on, she decides that she was raped. Even though she never said during the sexual activity that she wanted to stop or that she didn't consent. Never said that. She was a willing participant the entire time. And again, she was the initiator, actually, of this sexual activity. The school expels John. So now he's suing, and I hope that he bankrupts the school and takes every dime that it has. The standard of consent on college campuses is that drunk people cannot consent. And a great many men have been expelled or worse for having sex with drunk women. Now, here we have a woman having sex with a drunk man, and witnesses say, by the way, that she seemed fine and sober. He was the one that was, completely gone. So by this standard, she is the rapist. She should have been expelled. He's the victim. Yet he gets the penalty. Now, in reality, of course, nobody is the victim here. Well, he is the victim now. He's a victim in a very serious way, the victim of a false rape claim, getting expelled for no reason. So he really is a victim. But in terms of the sexual encounter itself, nobody's a victim. When two people get together and willingly engage in sexual activity with one another, there is no rape. That's not rape. If you had one too many drinks or several too many drinks, that doesn't make it rape either. Because if it did, then the vast majority of all sexual contact on college campuses is rape. And often, both participants are raping each other. But the whole notion is just nonsensical and sick and wrong. But again, that's the standard established. Them's the rules. Yes, we could easily say that John also was a willing participant. He never said no. He never tried to leave. By any sane definition of the term, that's not rape. Again, both. If you have two willing participants in a sexual act, it's not rape. A rape by definition is when one participant is not willing and is forced to. That's rape. But that's normal, sane, rational standards. That's not the standard you have on college campuses. And by their standard, Jane should be expelled, not John. Now, even introducing rational and sane standards, she should be expelled now, at least, for making the false rape claim. But even she should be expelled 2 times over, actually. What we see at work here is actually, as the article references, it's actually kind of an antiquated, chivalrous notion where the man is more responsible in a sexual act than the woman is. And it's the man's job to protect the woman from herself. That's the way these issues are handled on college campuses. The man is responsible for a sexual act that the woman later regrets, even if he was the drunk one, and even if she was the initiator, and even if she was entirely willful the whole time. Which is to say that the woman is, what? Incompetent? Helpless? Not responsible for her own actions? That's the message being sent here. It's a very paternalistic, one might even say patriarchal message of a woman not being responsible for her own actions and the man being penalized for not protecting her from her own self. Feminists should be up in arms about this, but of course, they're not. Number 2, here's the headline from Pink News. UK's biggest cervical cancer charity shuts down disgustingly transphobic lie that only females get cervical cancer. Yes, they're transphobic lie. But by the way, in case you didn't know, dear audience, only a female has a cervix. So yes, only females can get cervical cancer. Typically, the way this works, and I'm not a doctor, I admit, but my understanding, anyway, is that you can only get cancer of a body part that you actually have. So that's one of the reasons why, funnily enough, I've never suffered a damage to my wing or a ruptured gill plate, because I don't have those things. I've also never had canine distemper or feline leukemia. It's pretty amazing. The other day I went to the doctor for a physical and he came back and told me that, thank God, my elephant tusks are not infected. And I was pretty relieved by that. And then he explained that the reason they're not infected is because actually I don't have any. So that was pretty great. But remember, this is the pro-science side, okay? The side that holds the most anti-science position the modern world has ever seen. This is worse even than flat eartherism. A lot of times we criticize anti-science or pseudoscience positions by saying, this is like saying the earth is flat. This is worse than saying the earth is flat. This is actually a lot worse. But this is the pro-science side. Remember that. It's important. Pro-science. Number 3, I never thought I'd actually say this, but Terry Crews for president. I actually think the president from Idiocracy should be the real president. Unironically. Crews, of course, has been in the news recently pushing back against the false narratives from BLM, which here is an example of courage in the face of the cancel mob. Okay, this is for a man in his position, a black man, to take that stance publicly, okay, that takes guts. Especially as a guy who, he makes his living doing things on mainstream media. He's like the host of America's Got Talent, or he was anyway. We'll see how that goes. He works for mainstream media companies. They aren't going to like what he's saying. He is probably going to suffer financially for this, but he sticks to it anyway. And that's exactly what needs to happen. That takes courage. He deserves a lot of credit for that. Here's the latest from him. He says, it's a tweet from him where he says, defund Pornhub, and then tags fight the new drug. So he's going after Pornhub now. Now, you know me, he won my vote right there. I was just hands down, that's my vote. But this is what I really love about it. He goes from publicly defending one of the most unpopular opinions you can possibly take these days, goes from that to taking an even more unpopular position. So he's saying to the cancel mob, oh, you didn't like what I said over that? Well, get a load of this over here. You're really not going to like this. It's almost like he's doing it on purpose as a middle finger to the outrage mob. And I love that because that's exactly what we need to do. President Terry Crews, let's make it happen. Number 4, a little bit of good news to come out of this pandemic. No fans are going to be allowed at Eagles or Phillies home games, apparently. That's the latest news out of that. Now, I'm not in favor of the lockdowns, and I really don't see why we have to keep fans out of the stadiums. Why can't you fill them to 30% or 40% capacity or whatever it is? But I am in favor of banning all Philly sports fans from all venues and all places everywhere permanently. That I can endorse, for public health and all of that. Number 5, World of Beer in Hartford, Connecticut has pulled from its collection an expensive bottle of beer because customers were complaining about it. The beer was made apparently to raise awareness and fight racism. It's an anti-racism beer. And it was served to a black customer who I suppose was meant to be impressed and appreciate the anti-racism-ness of the beer. But something was lost in translation because, well, here's the beer. Take a look at, that's what the beer looks like right there. It's a beer dressed up in Klan robes. That's what they did. Now, in fairness, it does say yellow. The name of the beer is Yellow Belly, which is an insult. So I guess you could say they're calling the Klan yellow bellies. Now, it's an insult nobody has used since 1875, but still. Yet, somehow, shockingly, that didn't exactly resonate. And this brings to mind an old adage, which, is go woke, go broke. Or maybe it's get woke, go broke, or go woke, get broke. Anyway, woke and broke is the idea. They tried to be woke, but they accidentally ended up promoting the Klan, which it can happen to anyone. That's it happens. But that's why it's better to just make your beer a beer. Beer should just be beer. Don't worry about making your beer socially conscious. In fact, personally, I prefer for my beer to be totally unconscious. Having a conscious beer freaks me out. So that's the way I would handle that. This video is sponsored by BlinkSale, the revolutionary invoicing software for contractors and small businesses. Spend less time billing and more time making bank with BlinkSale. Get a free trial at the link in the video description.